pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Belinda, will you do that, please?
Bill Scarborough.
Here.
Joe Suture.
Here.
Belinda Billings, here. Brian Galley.
Here.
Jason Borsheim.
Here.
Ron Ritchie.
Here.
Tom Patel.
Here.
All present, we have a quorum. Review of the agenda. Do we have any changes that anybody would like to make?
I'll move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Would like to welcome everybody to the meeting. Tonight's meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda that was just approved. There are also agendas over there on the table. Agendas and minutes for prior meetings are available on the township website. Other individuals participating tonight in this presentation are Megan Mason-Minnock of Carlisle Wortman, our planning consultant. Jason Longhurst of Nowak and Frost, our engineering consultant. Brian Ottman, from our planning department. At this time, we'll go into public comment for items not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for people in the audience and remotely to talk about something that they do not see on the agenda. If it's something you want to talk about that's on the agenda, you'll have the opportunity when we get to that item. So we ask you, for the time being, just to limit your comments to items not on the agenda. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. You will be recognized. We ask you to come to the podium and state your name and address. And in the effort of time, please keep your comments concise and to the point and not repetitive. I will open it to the floor first, and then once everybody in the audience has had an opportunity to comment, we will give the people online an opportunity. Any questions on that? With that, I will open the public hearing for items not on the agenda. Anybody want to say anything?
Just for the record, it's public comment, right? Not public hearing.
You're right, public comment, misspoke. For those who just came in, we just opened it up for public comment for items not on the agenda. I will ask one more time if anybody has anything that they'd like to say. How about online? Anybody online?
No.
No? Okay. The public comment section is closed. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, PC file 2024-008. Petitioner is Dort Financial. This is a request for a minor modification to a PUD on parcel 08-27-327-001. This request is to make some minor modifications to a former bank, which is proposed to be used as a Dort Financial Credit Union. This is a relatively minor and straightforward application. So in the effort of speed, what I would like to do is give the PC members an opportunity to comment on any issues or questions they have. Then give Megan an opportunity to add or elaborate on those. Give the applicant an opportunity to respond. Do those things first, because that might address some of the people in attendance questions or concerns. And then open it to a public hearing, then come back to more comments and a final action. So, with that, if anybody has any issue with that process? If not, any comments from any of the PC members? Belinda?
I would like to ask about the landscape plan. Brian did not have the original landscape plan, but I pulled up on Oakland County where the property lines are, and I would like to know how many feet it is from the parking lot to the northern end of the property.
the applicant is here, can you answer that? Or Megan, do you have that?
From the front of the property?
No, the north side. From the edge of the parking lot to the edge of the property line.
Yeah, I don't know if it's yours or mine or not.
I'm thinking it's like 50 feet, but I don't know that.
Yeah. If you give us some time, we can get that.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, yeah,
Depending on the answer to that?
depending on the answer to that, that side is way overgrown. And I've complained about it for years. And I would like to see part of that cleared and some nice trees along there. They had 18 trees, it looks like originally, 6 along that side, 6 along the back side, and 6 along Bay Point. I'd like to see some nice evergreen trees and it clean at the parking edge.
Well, doesn't part of the property go into the wetlands on the north side? And we have a 20-foot, is it 20-foot?
25 feet.
No-touch area?
But it's about 50 feet if I'm not mistaken.
So,
40, 50 feet.
Mr. Oppman
Okay.
measured it using aerials and, as you said, 65 feet?
So there's plenty of room too.
Plenty of room outside of the no-touch area that is adjacent to the wetland.
And during the time that all of this invasive stuff has grown up, there's even some mature trees back there, I mean, that could possibly be used in their landscape on that side. I mean, they'd have to be identified but I would like to see that look as nice as it obviously did at one time.
Are you do you know, is it, I forget, is there a fence on the north side? Or
You
is-
can't see, I don't know if there is or not. There is on the other 2 sides, but I don't know if there's a fence on that side or not, because it's buckthorn, I'm pretty sure, and bittersweet over there, that's killed everything.
Doesn't show one on the site plan.
In terms of what's on their surveys of existing conditions, there's not any fencing shown
Okay.
that's on those 2 borders,
You mean on that one border?
on the one border.
Okay.
But there's no fences shown in general.
Because on the, let's see, that's north, on the west side and the south side, there's fence over there. The west side, you can barely see the fence because it's also overgrown, but,
Hi, Adine with Funkatecture. We are, and the owner is planning on cleaning up a lot of that on the north and west, because it is so overgrown. I know the grade drops off quite quickly there on the north, but the goal is to kind of do some site cleanup to the north and west.
I'm pretty sure there's Phragmites back there too, which need to be gone. I mean, I'm sure you know what invasives are, so, I mean, because the invasives will just kill any kind of good plant.
Sorry, I didn't have a dimension for that, but yes, I believe it was like 50 or 60. I do have the existing drawings available. So.
Thank you.
You're aware, though, of the no-touch requirement? And
I guess
for
I'm.
the setback from the wetlands?
I guess I'm not aware of that. What is
It's 25 feet.
25 feet from the
So you've got
designated?
65 feet there on the north
Okay.
side.
Yeah, I think the plan is only maybe like 10, 20
Yeah,
feet.
approximately 10 feet on both of the sides that you noted.
Okay.
We're planning on cleaning that all up in the near future, and then the fencing on the west side is also going to get cleaned up so that you can actually see it again.
Would you be willing to provide some enhanced landscaping in the area you're gonna clean up?
Well, the idea for now is that there's existing grass that runs back down that slope that Ed was talking about, so we wanted to open that up so that we could actually keep that area cleaned and
As grass?
maintained, correct.
And will there be trees?
We didn't plan on putting any new trees in, but whatever's existing, we were planning to keep.
Because originally there were trees over there, so I would like to see some trees. And, I mean, I know we haven't looked at the original plan, but I believe it's supposed to mimic what the original plan was, so I would like to see that. Will we get a final landscape plan before, or is this it?
It depends on what you want. I mean, if the commission is not willing to grant an approval of this tonight, then yes, they'll have to make whatever adjustments we can agree on and come back. Okay? Joe?
Just maybe a question for Brian. In some previous discussions, we're talking about landscaping plans in perpetuity, whatever that means. I mean, I know what perpetuity is, but landscape plans. Do we have an existing landscape plan for this property that's in perpetuity?
Well, I looked up our records on this property and this site plan approval, and what plans we had did not include the landscape plan, they were as-built only.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, we don't. I remember when this was approved, I actually did the review originally on this. But it's, because this is a PUD amendment now, what is there doesn't have to stay. They can propose, provided it meets our ordinance, they can propose changes. Because it's just like when we had Bridgewood Church in front of us, that had a set landscape plan, but when they came in for amendments, they modified the landscaping. So that's what they're doing here, and the challenge that you have to look at and fully review is, does it still meet our ordinance? So, that's.
Okay, so
really
any
bottom line.
reference to what the plan was and it should remain in perpetuity is like moot. Because we
Yeah,
don't
when
even
you
know
have an
what the
amendment,
plan was.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Comments from anybody else?
I guess, just looking at the plan, it makes sense to me. Making the modification to the drive-through makes it much easier access for vehicles, much safer, less lanes. In the Carlisle review, it says the new lighting plan does meet the ordinance, so I mean, that was gonna be one of my comments, to make sure that the K value and lighting standard is met, and all the signs meet the Sashaba overlay standard. As far as the landscaping plan goes, I would just make the comment of, they say they're gonna clean up those two lines and add any trees or bushes to bring it up to the current standard, and I would trust staff to review that. That's all I have.
Jason?
Is the plan to change the lighting posts in the parking lot, or just simply to change the light?
Just to change the light fixture itself, leave the head, leave the
Yeah,
post,
yeah.
and upgrade it to,
Okay. I like the posts, I think they're pretty fancy, and I'd like to see them stay.
You're painting them, aren't you?
what's that?
Didn't I see some notations that you're painting the
Yes.
posts? Yes.
Relamping to LED and cleaning them up from what they're currently. Yeah, especially along the backside, a lot of them that need to be cleaned up.
Anybody else? I have another, but I'll let everybody else go first. I have some more.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess my only objection was, they're removing the ornamental pear trees in the front and replacing them, and some of the comments say replace with bushes instead of trees. And I know every business wants to take the tree down that's in front of their business, because they think it's blocking the view of the building and everything.
Right.
So I guess to get to Belinda's point, maybe instead of removing them completely, maybe those could be transferred to the north side or something to maintain them on the property. And I guess, to me, and Brian, you can maybe answer this too, it's like, I don't know if, they got those pear trees that they're talking about removing and replacing with shrubs. I don't know if the same tree count still stands or not, since those were the original trees.
Yeah, I think they were part of the parking lot landscaping at the time, based on the number of spaces they
Right.
had. So, it's gotta be a tree of some
Well,
kind.
so
Now,
good,
it could be on the perimeter too, but, yeah, that one in the direct middle, that's the island, parking parking
Well,
lot.
they're talking about on the north side, replacing those two as well, so.
Yeah, yep, same applies. They should replace those with deciduous trees.
And I think there was a comment that there's some trees that exist that aren't showing up on the plans. Like, and I know for one, like in that island by the entrance coming off the side road, there's a nice tree there and it doesn't show, I don't believe, on the plans.
I believe the only trees that we plan on replacing, well, there's the 4 on the south that we're looking to remove and replace with new Douglas firs.
Norway spruce.
Spruces. The other ones, I think we plan on replacing as well with the,
With the same.
Well, there are-
Yeah.
yeah.
There are some that aren't real healthy, but
Yeah, those are the ones we're referring to, the pines
Okay.
that are in the back there, in
Yeah.
the upper left corner of that diagram.
there's
They are
one
all
right
good.
here
Yeah, those
that looks
aren't-
good and
those aren't gonna
healthy.
get touched.
And I hate to see you remove healthy
Right,
trees.
yeah, we don't plan to do anything with those. It's just those diseased pines that are in the back, which, as we were told by our landscapers, aren't native to Michigan, and Norway spruce are, so they're less disease prone.
I think those are all blue spruce, which are, yeah, not
Yeah.
good. So how many trees are you gonna add to the landscape plan in total?
I do not think we plan on adding any additional, it's mostly just replacing what we
Replacing
removed.
existing.
Okay, so replacing the 6 on the north?
Well, there's only the 2 on the north.
Yeah, there's only two.
On the two
there,
islands?
the two-
No, I'm talking about in the area that you're going to clean, that's all overgrown. There were 6.
We don't plan to remove anything
No.
along that side, other than just overgrown brush and.
Well, there's 6 trees back there underneath all the overgrown
Sure,
bush.
yeah, and I believe they're well beyond where we would even get into. We're looking at about 10 feet
I don't think
past
so.
that.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But we don't plan on removing any of
Yeah, there
any
wouldn't
other
be any
existing trees on
removal
the
of any
site.
of those trees.
I think those need to be cleaned up. They've been an eyesore for a long time, at least 10 years. And that needs to be cleaned up and some new trees put in there. Especially, Brian, since that was the way it was originally. If you look back at the aerial from 2008, there's 6 trees along there, and it's clear.
Well, for any confirmation of what they can clear there, they have to do some sort of wetland delineation to make sure that the wetland's not impacting the site, because that could be the case.
Well, I know the wetland is,
Whether it's invasive or not, it doesn't matter, it's, that way they know where the natural feature setback is, and that's how, they can comply with that.
Well,
If it even impacts the site, we don't know.
I did have a question, how do we determine if they're encroaching into that setback requirement if there is no wetlands delineation?
True.
I've spoken to the state, John Jones, it is in the wetlands, but they can still clear it as long as they don't take heavy machinery in there. They can clear it by hand, all the overgrowth. As much as they want to, up to a 25% buffer, or 25-foot buffer.
Do you agree with that, Brian?
I can't confirm or deny that because, he doesn't know our ordinances, so.
Right.
With 25-foot buffer, if the wetland, now, the wetland mapper online from the Eagle is not an accurate depiction of wetlands. It's from 1982. So, based on aerial photography. A lot's changed here with this is part of the Sashua drain that was not there when this was approved. So, it was part of the original Liberty PUD, but, we don't know the size of that wetland. We've looked at it from other perspectives for internal discussions on parcel to the north. I don't think the wetland encroaches on this property, but it may, and I'm not able to say one way or another.
Is doing a wetlands delineation a costly and time-consuming process? Is it?
Yes.
It's gonna be a couple $1,000s.
Especially for something, a project that's a replacement of the same use within an existing building. And asking that wetland delineation would be,
3 months.
it would delay the project, it would be additional cost, that what you should balance is that worthwhile of having a vacant building during that time? I think there are some things that maybe you could ask of the applicant, rather than doing the wetland delineation, is to, one, put on a revised landscaping plan, a 25-foot buffer of natural vegetation that has the same restrictions as the no-touch, and reference that in the ordinance. Also, I think in terms of your concerns of existing trees and where they are, and that they not be damaged during construction, you could ask them if they would be willing to then delineate on a plan where all the existing trees are, and for those that they're going to propose to preserve, put marker to make sure that it's graphically different from what's an existing tree to be preserved, what's an existing tree to be removed, and what is a proposed tree. So I think those are all things that you could say that we would look at that as a condition of approval, and then all of those things are things that could be checked by staff when they came to construction drawings, and that happens regularly.
Okay. Anybody else? I think Dick had suggested the possibility of creating a pedestrian crossing across the parking lot from the entrance to the sidewalk along Sashaba.
Yes.
Would you be willing to do that?
I believe there's already a sidewalk, that goes on
I think there is, yeah.
the east, and then I believe it's striped in the parking lot as well for that to access the building.
Did the plan show that?
I think it is there.
They had one, I drove by, I saw it,
Yeah.
and then I questioned what,
And it had been
The comment
recently
before.
restriped.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think the comment before, if you look, there's a tree that's proposed to be removed, in a parking lot island that we had talked about. And, that is not in front of Sashaba, that is in front of the Bay Point Drive, I think? No, it's in Sashaba. So I think what Dick was saying was then, instead of replacing
With a bush.
replacing with a bush, that would be a better place for a sidewalk key, but,
Yeah.
you can absolutely say that what's existing is fine.
But I'm sorry, unless I'm,
On the aerial, you
Okay,
can
I
see
see where
off
you're-
Sashaba, there's a,
It's more to the north side.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So he was effectively suggesting move that.
You can see a little bit on the colored one on the TV over there.
Yeah, yeah, and strike that, yeah. And then, but to what Brian said, Mr. Oppen said earlier, that tree that's proposed to be replaced with rocks and, tall grass and with a rock base, that tree should be put somewhere else on the site. And it might be more appropriate in the area, that's to the north that you were talking about, that needed to have some
Right.
augmentation.
I would just like to say that your first impression is your best, and that's Sashbaugh corridor. And to me, a commercial building, their landscape is the best impression, because that's what you see first. So I would like to see that, more trees, and I really think when they get in there and start cleaning some of that up, they might even find trees. I like what you said, to tag the ones to stay and the ones to remove, so you would know, after you got back there, how many you could save, and possibly add some to that north side.
You are proposing to leave the sidewalk along the west side?
yes. Yeah, we're not doing any changes to the sidewalks.
Would you be willing to provide an easement agreement for that sidewalk as it continues to the north through the wetlands for the unfinished portion that's on your property, so that some future user could tap into it?
I guess I'm confused on where you're planning on where you're mentioning locating that.
Brian, can you show them on that, where we're talking?
Oh, extending a sidewalk along the west.
Well, not
portion.
actually extending it. Well, maybe, yeah, not actually extending it, but providing an easement along on your property so it could be extended at a future date by an adjacent property owner.
Do you mean to attach to it or an easement? I don't. I'm
Well,
not sure.
if
'Cause it looks like
anybody
it
ever,
goes to the property line.
if anybody ever, developed a property to the north, the idea would be to attach to it.
Okay.
That was the original design.
Currently there's a fence, I don't know where the fence is in that.
It doesn't go that far.
Yeah, it stops right about where you're pointed at, where you're proposing there. with
Right.
The easement, that's about where it stops, and goes right out to the edge of Bay Point. So we would be willing to do that, if that's what you're asking.
And I assume that drive access is going to be your dumpster location?
For now,
And
yes.
you're willing to screen that according to our ordinances?
Yes, if we need to, we can do that.
Your two wall signs, at some point, if we get to a motion to approve, we do have to acknowledge we're granting them an additional wall sign. And they do, the combination of the two exceed our ordinance, so you would have to meet our ordinances in that requirement. It's not a big,
Yeah, we already made the adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about all the directional signs. My career was in banking, so I get it. But the directional sign in location D, I didn't see a lot of purpose to that one, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to remove that one. At least that would minimize that.
Hi, Mia Asta with Gardner Signs. We do a lot of financial institutions, and we get calls from financial institutions, oh, someone hit a sign or they can't find something. Where that sign E is, when people are coming in, what the verbiage on that sign is, it's giving direction that their main entrance, the arrows would be pointing to the right, so people know, and they're avoiding going towards that drive-through area. So that's the importance of that letter E for the drive-through.
I'm sorry, I think it was
D.
You
D.
said D.
Oh, I thought you said E.
Using dog is like the entrance.
Where to go? Why can't I find it now?
Coming right in.
D is
Page
just,
17.
it's just a small arrow with your initials on it, DF.
Right, and that's
And
so when
it's
people
right
are,
at that island when you pull in.
Off of Bay Point there.
I mean, to me, it's clear what direction you gotta go, but,
we always think that, but it's not. I mean, the more, we can never, I mean, obviously I'm in the signage business, I'm gonna say there's never enough signs, but, you know, especially when people are pulling in and there's traffic and they're not, the way, with Bay Point being split like that, by the time you get to Bay Point, to the beginning of that driveway, or if you're coming the other way, you need another directional to say, you know, this is Dorp Financial in here. And it's just their logo, they're not using the, you know, the full Dorp
okay,
Financial, it's just their branding.
all right. The awning, where is the awning going? There's reference to an awning in your sign plan?
Yeah, those,
That is noted on the architectural plan, A102, I believe. It is just going along Bay Point and Sachabal Road. I believe there are 9 of them.
10.
And
They would be over, there's 6 windows on the front of the building, and so they would be over the front windows, and then the 4 windows on the side of the building that face Bay Point. And they would be the same size as what the windows are.
Okay. Are you willing to provide screening of the new generator? The
Yes.
landscape screening?
Absolutely, yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
just to jump back to the awnings, is there, gonna be advertising or anything written on the awnings?
I think she said no.
Okay.
If you wanna have just a kind of a mock-up showing, if you guys would like to see this.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
There is some damage to the fence and going along the parallel to Sashbaugh. You're gonna repair that?
Yes.
Will you please note that on the plan so that we
Absolutely.
have documentation of that?
Stand up.
Megan, I
See
wasn't
these,
clear why,
right on.
both Jason and Dick pointed out that the change in the drive-through lanes might present some circulation problems. Do you care to elaborate on that?
I think
Either one
when it was first looked at, that if you can see on I'm getting all mixed up with north, east, southwest, but.
West, yeah, the
Yeah,
west
the
side.
west side, if you see where they shouted in the car, it looks like it can be a bit tight. But there was a discussion before the meeting that also what they're doing is they're decreasing the number of drive-through lanes. So you can see that there's plenty of room to pass through when between the different drive-through lanes. And I'm sure we've all negotiated a parking lot and a drive-through lane like that. So I think that that's not necessarily a relevant point anymore.
Okay.
And
Uh,
also, you said the fire department looked at it.
Yeah, they have no issues.
I like the awnings. I think they dress it up a little bit in the front.
I think those awnings, they're standing seam metal awnings, so it's not like a fabric, it's not gonna wear away, they're not gonna replace it, they're gonna provide a nice aesthetic to the building, the color.
Right.
Anybody else on the commission got comments or questions?
The blue seems to stand out a little. I think the awnings look nice, but I'm concerned maybe that it might look odd.
Well, isn't that their color? I mean,
That's the
Oh,
branding color.
yeah.
You know, Huntington there, and Huntington had the green stripe on the
Huntington
building.
had the bright green, I mean,
Mhm.
like fluorescent, so.
So does that remain, because that picture still has a green?
No, the
No.
gutters are being removed as we speak.
Okay. No other comments? I will open the public hearing. Yes, Megan, I'm sorry. I was gonna
I
give you
just-
the opportunity to elaborate.
Well, thank you, and I feel like everything that was in our letter has been discussed, except that, when the new evergreen plantings that are proposed, they need to be at least 6 feet in height in order to meet the ordinance. And so I expect that there will be revisions to the landscape plan, and that should happen as well.
Yes, we plan on having at least 6 feet height for each of those installed.
Thank you.
They're not gonna be little babies.
You mentioned 10 feet, clearing 10 feet along the north. I won't say anything after this, but you may have to go more than 10 feet if you're going to take advantage of some of those trees that have grown up that are mature trees that could probably be saved, and just an opinion.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, now I'll open it to comments from the public. Yes, ma'am. Please, come to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
I'm Jenny Coughlin, and I have a couple questions. Is there gonna be a stop sign coming out of the driveway? Because I live on Bay Point, and when I turn right off of Sashaba, I have been almost broadsided by the cars that are coming through the drive-through that don't stop when they get to the end of the driveway. They almost run right into you. And then my other suggestion is to have a new entrance that's off of Sashaba. It would alleviate some of the traffic that is going down Bay Point.
I can
I-
speak to
yeah.
the stop sign, yes, as the signage company, we stop sign there, but I think it's maybe 4 feet. I'm not. Yeah, it's, you don't see it, so we're proposing a new stop sign and, we'll be doing it for them.
In regards to the access directly off Sashaba, I understand your comment, but a lot of our guidelines for this area, we try to minimize entrance and exits off of Sashaba. Brian, you want to add anything to that?
No.
Or Megan?
Again, this was a phase of an overall multi-phase PUD. So the intent originally was to connect all the phases through that access point where the dumpster's gonna go. And now, over time, with the Sashua drain growth, that it's not really feasible. And I'm not sure that the road commission, and Jason can chime in here, not sure the road commission would ever approve another entrance, because it's too close.
Yeah, they would not.
To the subdivision there, so.
And in terms of adding that type of infrastructure to somebody just reoccupying a building again, that's, I would say, I would liken that to the requirement for a wetland survey in terms of delay and cost.
Yeah. Anybody else in the audience? Anybody, is there anybody online? Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
No. No more comments from the audience? I'll close the public hearing.
I got a quick question.
Oh, all right.
Maybe I'm public speaking, but.
We'll give you a little break this time.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kathy Nicholson, and I live in the complex behind it. Just two things. Wasn't clear where that sign is going,
The stop sign?
the arrow.
Oh, the
The
one
one
on,
that's.
the directional sign?
Yes. Is that outside the complex,
No,
inside?
it's gonna, it'll say ATM lobby drive-through with a right arrow. It's on the property close to,
Brian,
sidewalk.
Brian can show you on here.
It's for E.
You see his mouse?
D.
Which
D
within
is
their
basically
property.
saying enter.
Yeah, it wouldn't be on the, on that island.
Yes,
where the,
when I
flagpole
drive
is.
in,
No, it's
when I
not.
come in, I'm not gonna see that
No,
sign. You
no,
gotta get inside the
Definitely
bank.
don't wanna do
Right.
that.
Okay.
Fran.
And I don't know much about what the whole landscaping thing is. Just if you could take into consideration, you know, we have to pull out onto Sashaba, and as you all know, the speed limit's ridiculous, and there's a lot of traffic. So as long as the landscaping plan is not gonna obstruct my view, like to see oncoming cars, you know, they're going 50 miles an hour. You gotta keep that in mind.
No,
So unfortunately, you know,
we don't see that it will.
I mean, everything is behind the sidewalk, I believe.
is it?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I don't know, you know, what all the proposed, and then lastly, the changes that were here, like the building itself isn't gonna be made bigger, there's, right? Nothing drastic, it's just landscaping, changing the drive-through, correct? There's nothing major?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, now, I'll reclose the public hearing. Okay, so just to summarize, so we've got some unresolved issues, the clearing of and possible landscaping on the north side. Is everybody okay with that sidewalk access to Sashaba, where it is and without any cross-hatching? I guess I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems like we need a little clarification on, trees that are already on site that are going to remain, as well as, any that are gonna be moved. The easement agreement for the possible future extension of that backside sidewalk, the specs on the dumpster enclosures, the wall signs, which they agree will meet, but the generator being screened, repairs to the fence being noted. And don't wanna miss, Jason's comments. They're all either encompassed in what we've discussed or can be handled in engineering, and in my opinion, you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah, I was just looking, I think the only one was there may be some public sewer and water across the property, so just as long as the proposed landscaping reflects not being on top of those utilities and the easements.
I would suggest that if we make a motion to approve it, reflect all your comments, so that would be covered. I guess it's my feelings that, as Megan said, this is a relatively simple deal. There's some issues that need to be addressed. I think it is possible these could be addressed administratively, but I don't wanna speak for the commission. I'm just throwing that on the table and see if anybody's ready to make a motion to
Mr. Chair?
approve or make a motion to, table.
I just got one more comment before we,
Yes.
go to motion or whatever. I guess, since I've been on the planning commission for a number of years, it was several years back that the residents from the, behind the bank came in, because you guys were like paving your road. And, I think might be a good time now to know, what participation or what, regulations we wanna put on, the bank as far as being part of any, improvements or changes to the road. Like
Yeah.
cause I think it was like a holdup the last time, about improving the paving on that road there, so.
I believe Bay Point's private, so yeah, I assume that the bank would help participate with condos if they wanted to repave it.
I just think it'd be a good time to get that on record, so there's no confusion later on, if they have to repave, what that would be, so.
Like a shared access, yeah.
Well, it's more towards them participating in the funding of
Right.
future road improvements,
That's what I meant.
at least to a certain extent.
Like a percentage is, what happened before, when it was.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so typically with a private road, it is improved in one or two ways. One way is that there's a private road agreement that all property owners are beholden to. And there's a mechanism in that, for all of them to contribute. Don't know if that's the case here. What it seems like is that was the second way that you do it is a special assessment district, where you need a certain number of the properties to participate. And often some property owners will feel like it doesn't affect them, or, they would like not to participate. If this was a planned unit development overall, instead of a minor amendment to a PUD, I think it would be appropriate in that PUD agreement to have provisions about improvements to the road. However, again, this is somebody occupying and not expanding the footprint of a building. So while you bring that up, and I think it's good for the property owner to be on notice of that, as your planner, I would say it would be inappropriate to place a condition on the site plan approval, on the minor amendment approval, dealing with that.
It's not to mention this is two different PUDs. One, the Bay Point is Links of Independence, the other one is, the old Liberty PUD. So they are different. But I think your point's valid. I think the issue was Bay Point was being repaved and basically the bank wasn't aware, or, I thought I recall that.
Well, like I said, there was some discussion, I remember it came, and I guess, I just thought if we get that agreement, tonight, then it would help, future meetings anyway, so.
Is there anybody from the community that knows about that? Yes, if you would, please.
My name is Jolene Lacasse. I'm at 5997 Bay Point, and I'm on the board of the Links of Independence. We have patched the entrance over the past several years. We wanted to repave instead of continually repatching. And since that entrance, the concrete entrance is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the asphalt in the back. just the concrete entrance, we wanted to see if Dordt Financial would share in some of the cost. It would just be a percentage, not even half, because of course the residents use it more. But because Dordt Financial clients use it, I think they should participate in a small percentage of the repaving.
In the repairs that you've done to date,
They have not funded anything.
Nobody has?
Nobody has.
Okay.
And this is not this year, we could wait, down the line, they're doing a large investment. We really appreciate what they're doing, because it's been an eyesore for a while. So we appreciate that. The enhancement of the landscaping is gonna bring, value to that area. But I think, as a neighbor, I think it would be not only a kind gesture, but a good business gesture to participate in the replacement of the concrete area. And I have bids on it. It's not that expensive. We've visited doing asphalt versus just concrete, but overall the concrete is the best scenario to replace. And we would share that cost also with the Fountains Golf Course. So it wouldn't be just Dordt Financial, because the Fountains Golf Course also accesses through that main entrance.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
For her?
Yes.
Okay.
What percentage does the Fountains pay?
I'm in discussion with them, so we have not come down to a resolution of what we're gonna do, but they thought it would be the best thing to share the cost as well.
Ballpark dollar amount?
Ballpark dollar amount, we're looking at $100,000 to replacing the easement on Sashaba, which is Oakland County Road. So that's a special permit. And then it would be all the concrete area on both sides and replacing the gutter pans as well as the main entrance. Not change, just a remove and replace.
So when you're talking percentage, just ballpark, are you talking 10%, something like that?
We're probably looking 15 to 20% at the most.
Okay. Brian?
If I may, I don't know that it's appropriate for the planning commission to weigh in on something like this that's really a private agreement between individual property owners. I mean, you can certainly encourage them to be good neighbors with the links, or with the residents on Bay Point. But, I mean, I don't think you can really force that on them.
I don't think you could force it, but they should be aware of it.
Well, yeah, I think in the comments tonight, they're aware.
I was gonna ask you that. That was my thought too. I mean, they bought it with the various agreements already in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, I just wanted to.
I think they
Get
got,
it out.
I think they got the message in
Yeah.
the conversation. So.
Okay, yeah, if somebody is willing to make a motion to approve, I would like, I would recommend that language include the fact that this is a minor modification, and specific reference that we're also approving the second, wall sign, because those are two things that we have the discretion to do.
I'd like to make a motion to approve based on the comments that we had. For PC file 2024-008, Dordt Financial Credit Union, parcel number 08-27-327-001.
Yeah, you got any conditions?
Yeah, just all the conditions that we had listed before, the landscaping on the north side, identify the trees to be remain, and those that, if any, are being removed. The easement agreement for a possible sidewalk, the wall sign, the screening on the generator and the dumpster, and the fence repairs.
Can I add the comments of the township consultants as well? That covers some of those things too.
Okay,
I'll support with, if you'll accept one modification to marked trees to be removed and replaced with vegetation, and for staff to make sure that any modifications and the landscape fully meets the township landscape ordinance.
You accept that?
Yeah.
Okay, support.
You take roll?
Bill Scarborough,
Yes.
Joe Sucher,
Yes.
Linda Billings, yes. Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Jason Borsheim,
Yes.
Ron Ritchie,
Yes.
Tom Patel.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the tree ordinance discussion. Included in the packet was, as I said, I think it was at our last meeting, we were gonna run this by the Open Space Committee. And, I'll wait a few minutes.
You're right. I wasn't aware that we could approve something that was against the current township ordinance. So you kinda took me off guard. Maybe I misunderstood what you're saying.
For the tree replacement, removal, make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because they were going.
Okay. You guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
If it doesn't meet the original
Well, okay,
spec,
got it.
it's gotta meet this.
You guys ready?
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Brian, Megan, you ready? Okay.
Yes.
So the tree ordinance, as I said at the last one, we're gonna run this by the Open Space Committee, ROAC. We did that. The proposed changes they wanted are highlighted in red. The DBH, diameter of breast height, they wanted 6 inches instead of 8. And on page 2, the penalty for removing a landmark tree, they wanted a little stiffer penalty. They wanted to go, than a normal tree, go from 1.5 to 1.75 inches. Down a little further, they wanted to take the language out regarding a tree fund. That was based on advice from Jerry Fisher. There was a case in Canton where a developer was required to contribute money to a tree fund, and it ended up being an exorbitant amount. And he sued, and the court ruled that the amount was so much that it deemed it to be an unlawful taking. And he advises us to avoid that. So we could heed his advice here, or we could leave it in and let Mr. Carlisle and Mr. Kelly provide feedback on that. And one more change, item 10, they just wanted to elaborate, this is regards to the escrow. They didn't want to say 3 years. They wanted to get some feedback from our consultants, and we changed that for an appropriate length of time to be specified in the final ordinances. So, and again, keep in mind, none of this is specific language. These are principles, so they're not gonna use this language in the final ordinance, so. Any comments on that? Belinda, you wanted to say
Well,
something?
I just want to ask a question, is, on, number 7, the applicant would be provided to provide a tree replacement plan at preliminary review. And then, also down here, it says they could also, on number 9, also make a contribution to the township tree fund. Well, I'm just wondering, I'm only thinking about the wetland bank, you know, is there a tree bank? Is there, you know, property that they could put a tree on if there's not room on the site to put a tree?
I think planting a tree elsewhere in the township is still an option as proposed here.
Oh, okay.
This would be a monetary contribution, and Brian, I don't think we have one right now, do we?
Not for trees, no, we do have a wetland bank, and there's only been a few participants. in
Yeah.
that.
Didn't he say that was over near the golf course?
Yeah, it has to do with, it's part
Yeah.
of the Sashwa drain.
But could there be a tree bank, like in one of our park areas or something?
Megan?
Again, you could, again, this says anywhere in the township, so you could delegate places that would be available for those. that could act as a tree bank. I would urge you not to use the word bank, since
Oh, okay.
it looks at monetary, and that was really the crux of the case in Canton, was how much they had to contribute monetarily for replacement trees when they couldn't replace them on site.
What would you call it if it's not a tree?
I think that,
I think you're striking that altogether.
yeah, no, I would just say if it's not feasible to replace all the trees on site, the applicant would be allowed to locate them at an approved location. I mean, that language right there, the approved location elsewhere in the township. So they would be approved locations.
Okay.
Like
We could-
Glenwood or, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Someplace public.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you guys okay with it as written? And again, as I say, this isn't final.
I was kind of wordsmithing, you know, not really changing the context, but I mean, like in number 4, you talk about in addition to parking lot trees, perimeter trees, other trees. I just put down, in addition to other trees required by the landscape requirements or ordinance. It's like.
Oh,
we just
elaborate on
Yeah,
that.
we just kind of get real wordy there. I mean, to me, it's like, in the same, going on, let me see, where am I at here?
Oh,
The, number 7, the applicant will be required to provide a tree replacement plan at preliminary review. I guess I would, you know, if we're gonna do the ordinance, I would just say, just provide a landscape plan that, and then you can list that they have to talk about, you know, trees are taken out, trees are replacing, where they would be. To me, I think the landscape plan needs to be more important and get brought up more at the beginning. Like right now, the landscape is like one of the last things we look at, as opposed to one of the early things we look at.
Yeah, it's required for final, not.
Not
conceptual.
preliminary, right?
A lot of people submit it because it's easy to get comments, but
So I
it's
think
not required.
part of our requirement should just be that the landscape plan has to be one of the first things that they submit. You know, so we're looking at the vegetation before they cut it all down, and that type of thing, so.
and are you suggesting that the landscape plan also serve as a tree replacement plan?
To me, that should be a piece of the landscape plan. It's like identifying what trees you're keeping and
Almost
if
a
you're
separate
replacing
sheet.
some,
So-
where are you gonna
Like a
put
tree
those?
survey.
Well, that's also required.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying in conjunction with the, or at the same time they submit a landscape plan, they submit a tree replacement plan, something to that
Yeah,
effect?
I mean, that could be a piece of that, and whether it's a separate thing or a 2-piece, you know, like before and after type thing or something.
Is there existing, similar type of verbiage in other communities like this? Is this reasonable? I mean, it makes sense.
From what
Yes.
I read it was, but yeah, Megan, you wanna?
Yes, this is reasonable, and to Mr. Ritchie's point, many communities that I work with, the tree replacement plan is part of the landscaping regulations and is shown on the landscape plan, so that you're looking at what those existing trees that are being preserved in concert with whatever is being being replaced.
I kind of envision it might be like a 2-part thing, like show current and, you know, identify trees and then after, and here's where we replace them.
And then
Trees
usually
or-
with that, there's a table
Right.
that shows what's proposed to be removed, what their replacements are, and then sometimes they'll graphically show those differently. Or they'll
Yeah,
have a total
Be
and
part
then,
of,
yeah.
part of the mathematics as far as we're taking out this many,
Calculating.
inches and I'm replacing it with this many inches and that type of thing,
Yeah.
so.
So would it be okay with you if I changed it to say, to provide a tree replacement plan at preliminary review in conjunction with the landscape plan? Something like that.
I guess
Where are
what
you
I'm
saying
trying-
that?
What,
At the
number
top?
7. No, number
Yeah,
7.
number 7, I'm sorry.
I guess what I'm getting at is that, to me, I was trying to make it just be part of what they would normally have to submit anyway. It just, it'd be additional detail that's part of that landscaping plan.
Well, in conjunction with, yeah, well, okay, so you would,
Part of.
so
The one-
state
the
that their
one-
landscape plan has to include
Yeah.
tree replacement.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest that we modify the site plan review standards that make it so that's gonna have to be in a
One of
different
the
section than the street
standard.
ordinance.
Right.
So, you know, we'd have to modify it to require the landscape plan with conceptual, with the tree replacement plan. you know, instead of right now, it's required for final.
So we would still say it strikes me, we'd still say it's required in the tree replacement provision, or tree preservation provision, but then also modify.
Yeah, we'd have to modify the other section.
Okay.
Yeah.
But gets
Fine,
back,
I mean,
gets
that's-
back to my point, I think the last couple meetings that we've had, where to me, a lot of this could be done with a site plan review as opposed to just having a separate ordinance for it. I think to me, it's like we can, I guess what I don't like about some of the stuff is that we're having separate plans for some of these steps, and it's like we're duplicating some of the work that's already, being required. Let's just make it part of the requirements and. I guess the landscaping thing, like I say, we never required that preliminary or earlier. It's like, to me, we need to have that up front earlier. Hey, what are you doing with the property? So, and that's really what you guys are getting at. It's like somebody comes in and clear cuts everything, and then they come in with the site plan. Okay, now I wanna build this.
Can
They've
I-
already cut everything down, so.
Can I suggest that we move forward with this as it is, and then maybe, if the board approves engaging Dick, we have a meeting with Dick and have a discussion about how to accomplish this. Does that sound good to you, Megan?
Oh, yes, but I don't vote.
I know, but you think Dick, yeah.
Yes.
But you've done this a lot more than we have.
Yes, I think that would be a fine way to move this forward.
Okay.
I mean, I'm kinda on the same page as Ron, that,
Bureaucracy.
I mean, yes, I get that we're gonna require new information on site plan. But in reading this, I don't think it changes the way we've really done business for the last 12 years. Other than not allowing people to just go cut their trees down on their property before they turn in for it, which I don't know anybody who's done that in the last 12 years. It also treats different properties differently, so does that leave it open for court action or enforceability? Cause we're only requiring it in a certain case. Shouldn't we require it of every township resident? And that's, it's curious to me that everybody at this table lives in a property that trees were cut down, roads were put in, utilities were put in. Sure, now a lot of them have mature trees because, I've lived here for 50 years. Of course, my trees are mature. It's easy to put conservation on somebody else's property, but I guess, my sticking point is property rights. Somebody owns that property. How come I got to cut my trees down and now this guy can't? So, I don't know. Do you see an enforceability problem because we're treating one class separately?
No, I don't see an enforceability problem, because first of all, the majority of woodland ordinances only regulate those properties that are, looking to be developed in a major way, so that has to have a site plan, or, a site condominium, or it's being divided as a plat.
So we can kill a minor amount of trees, but not a major amount of trees.
And then it goes back to those personal property rights, and it goes back to forestry, which with a lot of agricultural communities, people would use that forested land also as another source of income. So there's some items there. And then also what has been problematic also in the Canton case was part of it was about requiring a license for an individual to cut down trees, because those two properties were privately owned properties where they cleared trees and then took it to development. But they had active businesses on those properties at that time.
So
And that's my question.
could I get my right to farm act and say I'm gonna farm, cut all my trees down, put fields in for a year, and then just say, I don't wanna farm anymore?
That's what I was getting at, is
Yeah.
what's to stop, somebody owns a parcel of land, let's just say, down the street at Bow Point, and they decide to clear cut the land, but sit on it for 2 years, and then come back and actually submit a plan.
Well, that actually happened in Washington Township. There was a developer who is known here too, who got the farmer to clear cut it before he bought it.
Yeah, and that's, relatively common.
And this is not, no woodland ordinance is gonna protect every single tree.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Mr. Galley, I've seen that this has I've seen multiple times where woodlands ordinances or tree preservation ordinances only apply to those properties that are going through site plan.
And I guess, my first point being, I don't think over the last 12 years, anybody on the commission said, hoorah, go in there and cut all the trees down. You know, you took out the roadways, you took out the house envelopes, you tried to lay it out the best you could, and those are the trees that can be cut anyways, even with this, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Number two is.
I think it's just another layer. I think it's good to do it up at the site plan process like Ron was talking about, but, you know, other than that, it's,
Well, should this apply to or parcels less than a certain acreage? Because if anybody develops a site condo, obviously they're gonna cut down most of the trees to put the roads and everything else in. Maybe this should apply only under a certain acreage, is that?
Or over a certain acreage, right?
No, under, because over, if you're developing a site condo, you're gonna have.
You mean
Say that again?
well, if somebody's going to develop a site condo community, that would fall under this.
It'd have to be like a PUD or whatever.
Because I would think they would clear cut most of the trees when they're doing, I mean, they'll try to save some, but you're talking about roads and, building envelopes, I thought,
But our regulations, I guess doesn't keep you from, our regulations don't keep you from cutting down trees, but it does keep you from building on only a percentage of your property. You can only build on a certain percentage of your property, and that includes the roads and everything too, right? So.
Did that answer your question?
well,
I mean,
so this would apply to any land, be it 1 acre or 50 acres?
no, it applies to, any property development that is coming in front of the planning commission for a site plan, PUD,
No matter the size?
just if it was a 1 acre commercial parcel on Sashawa, yes, it would apply.
Yeah, this one was 2 acres that we just looked at, so.
yeah. Brian, I think this, if this goes into effect, it does change a little bit the way that we've done things. We don't generally require a tree survey, do we?
Yeah, I'm thinking back in the last, since, 20 years now, 21 years I've been a part of this community, that we've required it once, and it was the Powers Office Park across from Pine Knot, that we required a full tree inventory. And that had thousands upon thousands of trees. I mean, it was multiple pages of trees that he had to mark. And it wasn't over a certain amount, it was everything. And I don't remember the rationale behind that, but that was a heavily wooded site that he developed there. And, still got approval, but ultimately, the planning commission it put him through the paces to try to see what was actually legitimate trees worth saving. Because like across the street, most of that property was scrub growth. It was junk, trees. I mean, there was nothing of any significance except for where the open space ended up being. So, that's, I think the challenge though is, with this is, what are we really saving in the end? And that's devil's in the details of the language, so.
Which, we gotta get there. So,
I think by requiring the landscape plan earlier and everything too, it shows we're putting out, that much more emphasis on everything too, so.
Yeah, and I'd say a majority of the applicants are doing that right up front anyway. Like I said, not only do they get a chance to get it reviewed, but also you get a better picture of what the site's ultimately, what they want it to look like. So I mean, that, a lot of the times they submit that. I mean, we saw that with the gas station, we've seen it with a lot of sites like that.
so are you guys okay moving forward with this? The understanding that, it'll be fine-tuned, and how it gets put into place will be discussed and fine-tuned.
So the next step is this has to go to the township board for likely a budget amendment. So they'll have to provide a proposal based on this criteria now, because the previous proposal didn't include all these items. So they'll have to prepare a proposal, we'll have to take it to the township board, and ultimately they'll have to approve going forward and spending the money to do it.
Would you recommend we ask Megan and Dick to give us a proposal first, or take this
Well-
suggested motion to the board?
Well, I think
Or both.
the board packet would have their proposal with this outline, this outline in it. That would be what the submittal would be, and then it's up to the board to approve that, because it will be a budget amendment, and they'll have to approve it.
So,
Approve that, going forward with the expenditure ultimately.
so let me make a suggestion here then. I included some possible motion language in here.
Can I ask you about one thing on number 12,
Yeah,
before you start making any motions? The following design and construction guidelines shall be adhered to. K says, no activity within woodlands. That seems like such a broad statement.
you got some better language, you understand what the intent, the intent is that this, a developer can classify a certain portion of his, if there's a heavy woodlands, he can classify it as a woodlands area and he won't touch it. And in conjunction with that, he doesn't have to inventory every tree within that woodlands area. So that's,
You just mark it like this
Yeah,
acre of
put
trees,
yellow
I'm
tape around
keeping.
it or something, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we already do almost all these on every site plan we've ever approved, with drip lines, barriers, like snow fence, barriers. I mean, we check that before they have, once they are ready to clear, we walk that with the plan. So grading and clearing around protected trees should be minimized. We already do that, and we do retaining walls on construction plans. You may not see them at the site plan level, but on construction plans, you already see these. Those are all there. I mean, we've had to do several in insignia,
Well,
so
I
keep that in mind, that's all.
I respect that, but, when we get to the drafting stage, if Megan and Dick think it's not necessary to put these in there because we got it elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think Ardmore is another example where we went and marked a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
Especially because of Wingate behind it right there. We wanted to make sure we, kept the big trees, and
Yeah,
so we actually went and
We
put
did.
tape around all the trees and all that.
yeah,
kind
we
of stuff.
sprayed them all, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge with this is a lot of these approvals have had buffers, and once the trees are cleared at that buffer and the buffer remains, trees that used to have protection no longer do. So inevitably, when a tree starts sagging and gonna fall on a house someday, the HOAs will call us and say, can we remove these? And it's like, well, we have to go out and make sure it's a health safety thing. And if it is, then yeah, you gotta, even though it's a protected buffer, once that inevitably happens, and you don't want a tree falling on a house.
They're live things keep changing. It's nature.
Yeah.
So, okay, I guess in conjunction with the way we do things, I do have to open it. There's a gentleman in the audience. Did you have anything you wanted to add on this?
No.
No, okay. So I'll make a motion that we obtain a quote from Carlisle Wortman to draft such an ordinance, and we seek approval from the township board for drafting of such.
I guess the only part of the wording I'd like to modify is just, instead of draft, say it's a brand new ordinance, it might just be modification of our current.
Can
ordinance.
I meant to say drafting of such ordinance changes.
Okay.
Is that good?
Okay.
I wrote that down.
I guess that's been my heartache all along, is just, I don't wanna keep, having 2, 3, 4 different ordinances when it could all be maybe part of one. Right, yeah. So I mean, if we could modify our current ones to incorporate all this, that's fine with me.
Okay,
Sorry for the interruption.
no problem. I welcome it. Somebody want a second?
Second, I'll
Bill,
second that.
Belinda, you take roll?
Did I-
Take roll?
Oh, sorry. Bill Scarborough?
Yep.
Joe Sucher?
Yep.
Linda Billings, yes. Brian Galley?
No.
Jason Morsheim?
Yep.
Ron Ritchie?
Yes.
Tom Patel?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we realize that we're coming a little late to the game in this township, but at least it's an attempt, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else seems to have them, so.
Yes. Okay, the next ordinance is the signage ordinance to require posting of a sign whenever there's a rezoning or a PUD. And Brian, you got a confused look on your face. Did
No,
I
I
miss something?
was too busy talking to Megan, I missed the vote, so,
Oh.
I missed the vote,
Oh, okay.
that's okay.
6-1.
It's, in my experience, it's a fairly simple ordinance. It spells out the size of the sign. It would be my anticipation that the responsibility is put on the developer, so there's no cost to the township. The developer provides the sign. The ordinance says how much in advance it's gotta, far in advance it's gotta be placed, and the date of the meeting and what the changes are, things like that. Megan, you wanna add anything to that? It's pretty simple.
Nope, yep, some communities require it, that the developer places it, some have the signs themselves and they put them up, usually that's in smaller cities. And then other municipalities have chosen not to have the signage. It's not required by state law.
This example we have, Superior Charter Township, where is that at?
No, it's in Washtenaw County. It's just,
The only thing I would say, as I'm reading through here, it talks about the developer putting the sign up, and charging $100 bond, blah, blah, blah. I've looked at Macomb Township's signage ordinance thing, and they charge 150 fee added to the application fee to the applicant, and then the township oversees those signs. I mean, I think, to me, that would be a more certain way that the signs are up, as they should be, you know, whether it's our code enforcement person, whoever, put the sign up and take them down when they're supposed to be, and instead of a bond, just add $150 to the application fee.
I mean, right now, a petitioner to come forward, he has to, it's a 21-day requirement in advance of the previous meeting. So, in theory, if you're gonna submit for a site plan, you need to have a temporary sign permit submitted, meeting the, we'll have to fine tune the criteria. That's a good starting point, that Superior Township, but we'll have to fine tune exactly how big the sign has to be and where it must be located, so they don't just bury it in the middle of the woods somewhere on the back of the property. It has to be visible from the right of way, or something like that.
Right.
And meet our, setback requirements. So we'll have to fine tune that, but it's doable, provided they're the ones installing it, and if we have a temporary sign permit, we can go out and inspect it and make sure it's done according to how they lay it out. But that would just be a requirement, as the submittal requirement.
I definitely feel it should be part of the developer's charge and cost as well. His responsibility, not us.
Agreed. Other questions? Somebody make a motion? You can use my language suggested, or you come up with your own.
I will make the motion to the request that Independence Township Board approve contracting with Carlisle Wortman to draft an ordinance that requires posting of a sign on any property on which a township will have a public hearing on or for the purpose of considering a rezoning. Such sign shall contain, among other information, the existing zoning, the proposed new zoning, and the date of the public hearing.
The only thing I would add to that is, should we know how much this is gonna cost us? I mean, do we,
You mean how much we're gonna charge?
like a bid? No, a
They'll have
bid,
to submit an estimate.
an estimate.
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Okay, why don't you insert that we get Why don't you amend your motion to insert that we ask for a quote from Carlisle Wortman?
So amended.
Second.
Roll, please.
Bill Scarborough,
Yes.
Joe Sucher.
Yes.
Belinda Billings, yes. Brian Galley,
Yes.
Jason Borsheim,
Yes.
Ron Ritchie,
Yes.
Tom Patel.
Yes. Lots of times you walk around the woods and you see these signs that have been there for 20 years. Still sitting
Okay.
there.
Okay. Consultants report. Megan, you got anything?
No.
Approval of minutes first.
Oh, thank you. Yes, approval of minutes. Thank you for keeping me honest, Brian. On July 25th, I had some changes, corrections. You ready?
Yep.
Page 1, bottom of the page. For the public specifically about between Sashbaugh and Pelton. That doesn't make sense. I think specifically at the Sashbaugh-Pelton, or near the Sashbaugh-Pelton intersection,
On the 25th, or?
July 25th, bottom of page 1,
I see.
the very last line, and then it continues on the top of page 2. And assuming yours printed out the same way mine did.
Yeah. Some questions about, from the public specifically about, okay.
Okay, page 3, the third paragraph down, in the second line, the word cause, I think should be because.
Okay.
Page 5, number of, maybe a third of the page down, Chairman Scarborough replied that they are not talking about changing zoning. They are talking, not talked. And page 8, third paragraph from the bottom. Chairman Scarborough asked if the entire site plan should be covered.
Okay.
That's it on that one. Anybody else got any changes, corrections?
I emailed, not on that one, on
It
the
was the other
August
one, yeah, I got those in there.
Anybody else? Motion to approve as, with corrections as noted, please.
Yeah,
I'll make a
corrections,
motion.
you know, or-
To approve as, with the corrections as noted.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next one is August 8th. Belinda, were yours numerous?
Just page 5, where they have Sabadon in there twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a find replace on that.
You already corrected it?
Yep.
So I guess we probably should reference that in the approval, because
Yeah.
we're looking at the different ones. Okay. Nobody else got anything? How about a motion to approve those with the 2 changes?
Motion to approve minutes from August 8th, 2024, with the 2 changes on page 5, from Sabadon to Scarborough.
Support.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just consultants report, now it's your turn.
None, nothing to report at this point.
Can I report that the request for the master plan moving forward will be at the September 24th board meeting?
Absolutely.
Correct.
So if any of you will want to attend, I will be there. Okay, discussion. Ron, talk briefly with you. Can you, I saw the postings on Facebook about the White Lake and Dixie intersection, and I wonder if you could just elaborate a little bit and inform us about how that came about.
Well, I guess every year, probably multiple times per year, and Brian, you can, I'm stepping on everybody's toes because I'm not the full-time people, but we have discussions with the road commission and even the state officials about different roads. And just like in our master plan, we talked about having an entrance on 75 off of maybe in Clintonville, You know, that's one of the things we've been talking about for multiple years. We've also talked about White Lake Road, improving the White Lake Road traffic. You know, we talked about double left turn lanes or whatever. You know, obviously we're open to other options, but we've been talking about trying to improve that intersection for a number of years. So every year when we talk with the road commission, we bring those items up that we would like to see in the township. But obviously, we're not in control of the roads, so we're at the mercy of the county approving things. And you never know until they come out with their little list of, like they did this week, saying, okay, this is now on our list for 2025, so.
Awesome.
So it's.
26, yeah.
Yeah, 26, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a year or so, but I mean, like, surveying and all, you know, activities start at 25, but anyway, like I say, that's just part of what the township does. You know, the supervisor and the staff are always, you know, whenever we have, you know, meetings with the different entities like that, we have our wish list of things we'd like to see, so.
Could I ask, was that an MDOT funded decision? Or
It's-
not a decision, but MDOT's funding it.
It's,
is that-
yeah, I mean, Ron, if I can, the detail's not there, so, but the way the correspondence was, it made it sound like it's an MDOT project. And it wouldn't involve us or the DDA or, I mean, we're gonna talk about it at the DDA meeting next week, but, because that's on our list, as part of the DDA plan, but, it'd be great if they're funding it.
Yeah, like I say, the DDA, they actually were getting ready to, you know, I think that's what you're getting at, Brian, is that the DDA, I think, was, you know, actually getting ready to allocate funding for that. And, so, like I say, if MDOT's doing it, and MDOT has to be involved because Dixie Highway is a state road, so, but most of the activity or most of the cost or, you know, to me is really on White Lake Road.
Yeah, it's right away acquisition.
So I don't know how much, you know, the state's putting in compared to the county, but, either way, it's better than us having to put our money into it, which with the DDA, you know, we felt that intersection was so highly, in need of, fixing that, you know, the DDA was, you know, gonna pony up money for it, or at least start talking about budgeting money for that, so. So, you know, it's, there again, it's just, all those things take a lot of time and a lot of coordination to make them happen, so.
Yeah, I mean, a new road project is usually 3 to 4 years of planning, pre-engineering and all of that, so I assume that they've already started that. I don't think the township's been privy to any of it at this point. In
What's
fact,
that?
you know, we used to have discussions quarterly, Ron's right, we haven't in several years, so that's why this was kind of a thrown out there surprise. And, same with 75, when that's all of a sudden the cones went up.
I think one of the
You
last,
know.
last roads that we lobbied for multiple years was Walden Road between Clintonville and Baldwin.
Correct.
And, cause that really spans the Lake Orion border as well, so, you know, we talked about it for a long time and, you know, it took a while, and we finally got Lake Orion on board, you know, to talk about their area, but that took, you know, at least a half a dozen years of talking with the county to try and get that, you know, action to happen on that, so.
Yeah, and I think there's future improvements that are possible if the rezoning goes through with the gas station, with Big Lake and Deer Hill. That's been our master plan since, I think, '94, to do that. And also Man Road in Clintonville with Insignia Finishing, they've contributed $250,000 towards that, whatever happens at that intersection. And it's my understanding the road commission wants a roundabout there. But whether it's a traffic light or roundabout, it's better than what we have, so.
Just a comment, you know, I don't have any privy information on the funding for that, you know, whether it's MDOT or the county or portions of, but I got it from Brown yesterday, and Brown said it was an MDOT total funding thing.
Yeah, that's the way it
But
reads.
those aren't my words. yeah.
That's the way it reads.
Yeah.
The email read, that's how it
Like
works.
I say, I think that's why everybody's posting it on Facebook, cause it's like, surprise, hey, something's gonna happen and it won't cost us any money.
How do they tell you? Did you guys have a meeting or?
No, they don't tell you, they just post it. It's like every year they put up their projects for the next year, and that's what, or the, you know, coming years, whatever.
Somebody saw it.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, we used to meet quarterly at a minimum with MDOT and the road commission back in, long while ago
Like townships, every township will?
No, we'd schedule them, and
And
they'd
even
come
if-
right here.
Even if they didn't have anything pertinent
Yeah,
to-
because there's other small projects that they do, like they did the bridge, or the culvert on the Sashua River, you know, the creek, Sashua Creek where Man Road is, there's a big culvert, well, they redid that. You know, so we learn about little projects like that. They wanna replace the bridge on Sashua between Lake Oakland and Woodhall. And that'll be a complete utter disaster when that happens.
Yeah.
But they've been talking about that for several years.
Hopefully
So-
we can be on that though, to widen it enough to have pedestrian
That's,
crossing though too.
and that's why we have these meetings, because Dave McKee and I are pushing safety paths and connecting that part of the township to the other side, you know, and so that's why we want these meetings and we try to do them. It's just hasn't happened for the last several years.
And that's part of what the master plan is supposed to be for too, is we're like, hey, you know, that's why we send it to the county for them to see, so, cause that has a lot of those items in there, so.
Yeah,
The master plan is that living document that should be that states what your priorities are. But those regular meetings with the road commission and with MDOT, are great to have. Especially if you can bring something to the table, if something is you know, cause you have the DDA and the CIA. So a lot of times when they are doing a major project, they might not have funding for the sidewalks. But if you bring something to the table, then they would expand that, somebody to the table, they would expand that to have the sidewalks or the safety paths put in at the same time, as that. And so it's one set of construction documents, it's one bid, it's all being done at the same time.
In 2008 or 2009, when they widened Dixie Highway, put the center turn lane all the way through Independence Township on Dixie Highway, because some had it in some places, not others. One of their proposals is to, if we would pay for the sidewalks, they would do all the engineering and installation of the sidewalks. And we turned that down in 2008 and 9, so, because it was a depression time, you know, everybody thought it was, you know, shaky, and I'm sitting there going like, you're getting $1 for 25 cents, so why wouldn't you be doing it? But the board at that time voted it down, so.
well, I mean, with the road millage, once it got, you know, we lobbied with the road commission to pay for that engineering. And the second time around when we attempted it, they agreed to that, and they agreed to a maintenance plan. So they were anxious to use this as a test dummy, so other communities would do the same thing. So,
Test
I mean,
case.
yeah, I mean, because it helps them overall in their transportation improvement program.
Well, that's really how we got to the road millage several years back, was that we were trying to get us prioritized higher to get our roads paved, like Sashball and maybe and some of the other roads. And they're going like, no, hey, you guys are down the list. It's like, we're not planning on those roads for 3 more years or something like that, so. But they're saying if you guys could come up with some money, then, you know, we'll move you up the list.
But so this is all in the precondition that we're sitting at the same table, right? So if those meetings aren't happening, we can't do anything with that.
That's why this was
I
a
mean,
little
what-
surprise. Big surprise.
Has there been like some sort of a change in process?
I'm not gonna
Or-
comment on that.
Oh, okay, I think you just did.
Oh, I'm just not, I'm not gonna elaborate on it.
Yeah, okay.
I have 2 questions. First one, Rite Aid, like it's going out of business, they still pay tax on that property?
Yeah, it's, we've had a lot of interest in it. It's a tough site, they want a ton of money
To buy
for
it?
it. Yes, they want like $4 million.
Oh.
And it's not a big site. It's, the people that I've talked to are gonna need more acreage. And so, we'll see.
And my second question, like we're talking about this Dort Credit Union and the easement to the west. So to the north, that's, like you said in here, there's more wetlands now than there, is that part of that Sashaba drain then?
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty tough for somebody to build something there, anyway.
Yeah, realistically, I don't think that'll ever happen.
So who owns that property to the north?
It's, McLaren.
Could be a trailway though, like.
Yeah,
Something
I mean,
that hook.
a boardwalk,
Like
you know.
boardwalk or something that hooks that sidewalk, so I mean, but it
I
might
mean-
not necessarily be a parking lot or a building on the other side of it. It might just be a trail that goes someplace.
Yeah, cause now somebody would have easy access off Bull Point, or, Walton Center, you know, so, since MSU finished that road. Cause that's also, that section of road along Walton Center is still owned by McLaren. So there's a very small 200-foot stretch that they own, or 300 feet of roadway, so it's a little bit of a conundrum, and they need to make that public. But that's an agreement that McLaren has to work out with the road commission, and they haven't done it yet.
Is it being acted as if it is public? I mean, they haven't put up barriers or anything.
No, I mean, it's a full through street.
Yeah.
And, once the light's done here in a couple weeks, that it'll be fully functional, so.
Just some technicalities you have to go through to make a.
Yeah,
county
there's
road,
some
so.
agreements that have to be done with the road commission, between McLaren and the road commission, and we have to give them a little push to get that done, because it's just been 10+ years.
So does water drain through there, that little creek there from the north?
Yeah, so everything to the, you know, the Walton Village is really the high point, and every property has a coefficient of runoff that they can use, and this was all based on a special assessment back in 05, 06. And so when they did that, they created land further down that was wetlands, and then it goes through, a pipe goes through to this pond, and that goes over near MSU into the old bank, the bank site, and then it transverses through the power lines into the apartments wetland, and then ultimately ends up at the fountains. And then it goes under maybe, and it's gone.
It's actually a big buried pipe, like by the back of the links that
Yeah.
goes into the golf course and everything.
Yeah, there's multiple points where it transverses through the golf course.
Cause we just paid to clean that out like 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, the big problem is it needs a lot of maintenance, and, you know, the fountains has had a lot of problems this year with, because when it rains, it really pours. And so they've had a lot of issues, and we're looking at some way to put some more maintenance on it. But the fund they need to be assessed again, so. It's just unfortunate that the fountains is the bottom of the, you know, they're at the bottom of the hill, so to speak, so they kinda get the brunt of it. And, you know, but I know DPW is looking into that now and how they can fund it and do
It's
some
great.
major repairs, cause with some of the rains, the weirs that hold up the water, a series of weirs were busted. Like when we got the hurricane remnants a few months ago, that literally destroyed a couple of the weirs, busted them completely open. These are steel, it's almost like an old-fashioned seawall that these things are, and it broke them. It bent all the metal and everything, so it's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the fountains lost 3 greens, they were flooded, so, but that was 7 inches of rain or something, so, 10-year storm.
Anybody else got anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We're done, thank you, folks.
Where's the trash can again?
Right here.